How's everyone doing today? Different sort of a video today. We're going to be just hanging out in the garage and sort of talking about different tank loadouts in regards to Clan Wars. So, before we get into anything, I'd like to start with saying this is coming from a perspective as a caller in Clan Wars. This doesn't have to do with advances, it doesn't have to do with randoms, skirmishes, none of that. This is my opinion of these tanks and their loadouts in regards to Clan Wars specifically, and even more specifically, this season. Now, this video is a little bit late, but, better now than never. So, we're going to go over a few tanks, mainly that I call for, and I'm going to go over what I run for equipment, and why I feel that this is the most competitive way to play these vehicles in Clan Wars. Now, obviously, there's a lot of opinions, and the reason why I'm making this video is because I hear a lot of these opinions all the time, so I'd like to just make a video where I can put everything in one place so anybody who is interested can listen to it and maybe comment or shoot me a message in game as to why they agree or disagree. Maybe they agree with some parts and disagree with other parts. But nonetheless, let's get started here with my personal favorite tank for Clan Wars, the IS-7. Now, why do I like the IS-7? One is just the sheer amount of hit points that you can put on a heavy tank matched with the speed. You will not get this amount of hit points on any other vehicle with the speed you're able to make this vehicle go. So, I run hardening, turbo, and rammer. Now, you'll note that I don't have a lot of bond equipment. This is because I don't play very often, and therefore, I've been trying to save bonds for the inevitable time when I cannot play Clan Wars and be able to win a tank and I have to bid. So, I only actually have 2 total pieces of bond equipment, but I felt it was more important to be able to get that next Clan War tank, it being the 907 this time, rather than grabbing a couple of pieces of bond equipment. I'll talk more about that at the end. So, IS-7, hardening turbo rammer. I run a orderly ammo rack on it. However, when it comes to directives, you can really run whatever. I mean, you shouldn't be spending bonds to resupply these, because if you do resupply them, it will cost bonds. It does not cost it for crew. So if you don't have anything for equipment, you should be running a crew one. Now, the one that I would recommend is Firefighter for most vehicles, or 6th Sense if you're in a medium. This is a great one. However, any of these are going to be beneficial, but you should be running one. I cannot stress that enough. Now, why hardening? So this tank starts off with a base amount of hit points of 2,500. Now, if you see here, my hit points are now 2,780. So improved hit points have given me an extra 260. We'll go over the modifications, but I've gotten that up to 2,780. Now, what is 2,780 hit points comparable to? Well, let's look at a VKK. Now, I'm running hardening on this too, and this is a super heavy vehicle. This only has 30 more hit points. Let's look at the 705A. I actually have more hit points on the IS-7 than a 705A. Obviously, you're not going to get that with the mouse. E3 TD, that's a TD, so that's not going to matter. 60 TP, I have 2,600. So, this has more hit points than most of the heavy vehicles. I believe the Type 5 has more. The E100 has more, and the mouse has more. There may be a few more in there. Somebody will correct me. Let's talk about the turbo here. Now, I've opted to pick my second slot as turbo because I have the booster. Now, that gets this vehicle up to 68.6 kilometers an hour. And it's not a false speed either. It has approaching 20 specific power, which is amazing. What else has close to that? Well, the 140 has 17.5 specific power. So it's not exactly the same. That might be a bit of not really comparable. Let's look at the 277. So I have better power to weight ratio in my IS-7 now than the 277. Let's go back to the IS-7 here. So this thing will really get up to speed, and with that armor that you get on the IS-7 that you don't get on the 277, you're really going to be able to ram vehicles too, especially with that speed. Now, obviously, this comes at a sacrifice. Well, and before we go that, let's look at Gun Rammer. Gun Rammer, I believe, is a must on every vehicle except for a light tank, such as the EBR. But on this tank, better DPM is is always going to be better, especially in those dogfights. Now, of course, the IS-7 is not renowned for its DPM. However, I have managed to get it up to 2,733, which is not bad. But where did I make sacrifices? Let's start with the aim time, 2.6 seconds. That's terrible. Not great. But we'll see why. 0.37 accuracy, obviously, I've taken with one of the improved modifications. I've allowed the accuracy to go down. And gun traverse speed, you can see there, 2 degrees. However, I've kind of made it back up with the combat rations. So, really, I've made some sacrifices, but I haven't gotten the statistics that much worse where it's all that noticeable. Now, why do I not care about the gun statistics at all other than just raw DPM? And that's because, going back to what I said earlier, this tank is used in Clan Wars as just up front. You are in their face, you're right next to them, it's a dogfight. If you are sniping in this tank, something terrible has happened in this call. The IS-7 is either used to just block an alleyway, as we have seen on Himmelsdorf for the last few days, sticking a tank down the 2 line just so it can spot, because the IS-7 does have great spotting. 465 on here, and I'm not doing anything extra other than just crew skills. Situational awareness, recon, BIA. Obviously, I've increased the through one of the improved modifications there, and the combat rations. So, this tank isn't making that many sacrifices, and it's still quick. Let's take a look at what I've done here. So, obviously, I've done the all-terrain suspension. Traverse speed, whatever. Suspension durability, whatever. We're running large repair kits. You know, we're in a group, doesn't matter. The 7% helps it to maintain that speed, and speed, it's all about speed and rotation when we're playing Clan Wars. You can't see them, they can't see you. So if you get too far away from the cap, and they have tanks, they get into your cap circle, you need to be able to get back. Plain and simple. Aiming speed. Aiming speed is more important to me than aiming circle size. You're right up close to people, so you're not sniping. Honestly, this one, you could just go without it. That's just my opinion here. Periscope drive, stun duration, whatever in Clan Wars. Doesn't matter. You know, you're going to get hit by already, whatever. Doesn't matter. The 3% view range is going to be helpful if you are that tank that's in the middle or on the left spotting. So be it. Obviously, here I've chosen 4 kilometers an hour forward speed with taking a hit on the gun statistics. 4 kilometers is massive for this tank. Especially when you're going downhill, you will just go right up to that speed. This is huge. No questions there that this is the one that I would recommend you take. And this one, plus 2% vehicle hit points, you know, plus 4% dispersion, hull traverse, doesn't matter. You're within 50 meters of the tank you're shooting at. It's like shooting the broadside of a barn. Shouldn't matter. The other benefit of this IS-7 that you get is it has APCR as standard. So this means that you don't run into problems when you're shooting at the sides of tanks where you're bouncing off spaced armor because the 277 over here uses heat. And this makes it kind of awkward. Now, the 277 has great pen, but it doesn't matter if you're not reliably hitting those shots, especially from the rear. And let's look at shell velocity too. 1,300 or 1,030 and 125. It's a little bit better, but again, you're shooting from a close distance. All right, enough about the IS-7. That's my opinion there. Obviously, you should be running food. Don't bother with a fire extinguisher. You're only doing yourself and a team a disservice. Let's look at the Chieftain. Now, this is a hotly debated one. So I run 2 setups here. I run one with health, with bond equipment obviously, and run one with speed. It is all up to you here. The Chieftain is often not intended just for brawling. A lot of the times it's, you know, a ridgeline, and then maybe it might be brawling later. So it's important that you're effective as both, and just throwing this lineup on it doesn't really do much for you. So I love the rammer. I love the turbo. The vents is really nice here, especially when you have an improved vents. Just helps everything out, your accuracy, all of that. The Chieftain should be set up to how you are most comfortable playing with it, but you need to have speed on here. Because again, you have to be able to move, especially on these larger maps. We've been playing highway a little bit. And that's a big map. We need to be able to get back. And it's not only helping your top speed, it's helping your engine power. That's huge. Let's look at 277. So I don't really call for this vehicle anymore. However, if you don't have an IS-7 and you're not bringing a Chieftain and instead you're bringing a 277, I would recommend the same loadout as the IS-7 just to get it as close to it as possible, helping out those hit points. Again, a far cry from what you're able to get at the IS-7. Same with the hull armor, but that is my recommendation there. Other than that, I won't go over the EBR here because my EBR drivers, it's more important that you guys bring what you're comfortable bringing. But that's about it. So mainly here, I just wanted to focus on this IS-7 and Chieftain. The IS-7 mainly just because of how much I'm calling for it and feeling like the 277 is falling out of favor a little bit now that you're able to do this with an IS-7. So I hope this has been informative. Please feel free to comment and I'll respond on this video and we can kind of work through it rather than kind of having larger debates while we are in battle. So again, hope you enjoyed it. Hope you got something out of this. And I'll be posting this video immediately, so you'll see it. Today's, Thursday the 28th. So I'll be in TeamSpeak. Feel free to shoot me a message. Alright, see ya.